Today I authorized 2 operations in Iraq. Targeted airstrikes to protect our American personnel and a humanitarian effort to help save thousands of Iraqi civilians who are trapped on a mountain without food and water and facing almost certain death.
All right, folks, welcome aboard. That, of course, the president last night making the announcement. And joining us right now is Congressman Peter King, Republican, New York, member of the House Homeland Security Committee and chair of the House Subcommittee on Counterterrorism and Intelligence. Welcome, sir.
Steve, good to be with you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm wondering if, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad he's doing something, but I'm wondering if this is too little, way too late.
Yeah, I support the airstrikes, but I'm inclined, really, I have 2 things. One, I think right now it's too little. It's certainly late. Whether it's too late it really depends on what action the president's going to take. And I just can't understand a commander-in-chief taking action, but then seeming reluctant about it and saying what he's not going to do. Why say you're not going to use ground troops? Why use expressions like, we're not going to get dragged into a war? That is a whole tone of defeatism, and it's sending a signal to ISIS that President's just waiting to get out of there. If we're going to take action, he should never, ever tell the enemy what we're going to do or not going to do. We decide that alone. Let them keep guessing. Keep them off guard. Right now, if they know definitively that we're not going to use ground troops, and the president has said that over and over in the last 18 hours, then ISIS can just step up their activity, make it more desperate than ever, knowing that we're not going to take action. So basically, we're letting ISIS control the timetable here, and we're allowing them to control the level of battle, and that's just wrong. And also, he talks about it that, yes, ISIS, stopping ISIS is a national security interest for us. Keeping Iraq from being taken over by ISIS is in our national interest. But then he says we're not going to take action until the Iraqis have a better government. Well, I would hate for American security to be based on the whims of the Iraqi parliament.
Yeah, you would think. And you alluded to, you don't know if it's too late, but you think you think it's too little. What should, at this point, he be doing more?
Yes, I think we should do much more airstrikes. We should be attacking convoys of ISIS. We should be going after command and control centers. We should be doing much more air attacks against ISIS. And also, we should be arming the Kurds. The Kurds are good fighters. The Kurds have been with us. That's the one element of Iraq that has always been pro-American, going back well over 25 years. They have always been strong supporters of the United States. They were never the ones creating the problems in Iraq that resulted after the war. They've been, again, very, very supportive of us. We owe it to them to do what we can, certainly to provide humanitarian aid and give them the opportunity to defend themselves. One of the reasons they can't defend themselves now is because ISIS has such powerful weapons that they capture from the Iraqi army.
Yeah, well, we're talking about all kind. We're talking about M1 tanks. We're talking about sophisticated U.S. weapons that they have taken from the U.S. Army, the Iraqi army provided by the U.S. But you're right. I mean, why don't we just start shooting like it's at everything ISIS? Why don't we try? Why shouldn't the goal here be to destroy ISIS?
I agree with you totally, because ISIS wants to destroy the United States. Remember, this is a group that Al Qaeda has cut itself loose from because they believe they're so dangerous and because they're such violent terrorists. They have absolutely no sense of restraint. They just want to do whatever they can to attack us, and they are much more powerful today than Al Qaeda was on September 11, 2001. It cost several $100,000 for Al Qaeda to attack the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. ISIS has over $1 billion, money they've stolen from banks, money they've got from kidnapping people, getting ransom. They have over $1 billion right now, and the sophisticated weapons, and they have hundreds of foreign fighters they can use, thousands of foreign fighters who have gone to Syria. These are people from Europe who have gone to Syria and can get into the U.S. without having to apply for a visa. Plus, there's over 100 Americans who have gone to Syria, and many of them could be used by ISIS to come back into the U.S.
Well, let me ask you about that, Congressman. And as, of course, as chair of the House Subcommittee on Counterterrorism and Intelligence, you're the right person to ask, certainly. Do you believe there are ISIS cells here in waiting? And do you believe that these airstrikes might set them off?
Well, there are certainly people in this country who are sympathetic to ISIS. There are al-Qaeda supporters here in this country. Obviously, there's different reports we've gotten about different possibilities. But I will tell you that right now, anyone who we think is suspicious, we should be looking at. I know under President Bush we would. I know that under Giuliani and Bloomberg we would have been doing it in New York. There's no doubt that whether it's Iran with their Hezbollah or Quds Force agents or ISIS with its, they certainly have al-Qaeda supporters. And it's not just limited to ISIS. You can have al-Qaeda self-starters who identify with ISIS. So, no, we would definitely have to be on the lookout, monitoring extremely carefully, and our intelligence community is, despite the restrictions that have been put on it by this administration, they are monitoring it very, very carefully. But again, you don't know what you don't know.
All right, so would you say
that's the real danger here?
Would you say we're at increased risk since the bombings, since we've now started bombing ISIS, that we here at home may be at increased risks?
We have to assume that any time we take action overseas, that if al-Qaeda or its affiliates, or in this case ISIS, can strike back, they will. I'm not aware, let me make it clear, I'm not aware of any particular plots. I'm not aware of any particular threats. But no, we always have to go, I believe, to a heightened level of awareness and concern whenever we take action. We should always be at a very high level, but even more so whenever we're taking action overseas. Yes.
And I guess this, the White House press secretary was asked about this today. I didn't hear his whole answer, but I would assume that ISIS is no longer considered JV, the JV team dressed up in Lakers uniforms.
Yeah, that was one of the worst analogies or metaphors they ever used. No, this is, they are a real threat to us. They are the big leagues of terrorism. They have the training. They have many of the best al-Qaeda fighters have gone off with them. They're attempting to recruit scientists. They have people who have been battle-hardened through the fighting in Syria. This is and we've seen the way they've moved through Iraq. I mean, they right now have a landmass larger than the size of Great Britain. So this is, this is a whole new world of terrorism. And yet you hear the president talk about core al-Qaeda being defeated and how we just have to worry about little flare-ups here and there. And he's so intent on looking different from George Bush. He's basically denying what he's doing. He says we're not going to engage in combat. Well, dropping bombs is engaging in combat. We do have more than 800 troops in Iraq. That's more than what troops in Eisenhower had in Vietnam. So he's having it both ways. The danger with that is it encourages the enemy to think that we're weak, that we're vacillating, that we're not serious about what we're going to do. Like, for instance, when the president announced the surge in Afghanistan back in December of 2009. As he was announcing the surge, he announced the date we were going to withdraw, the day we were going to start pulling our troops back. That sends the exact wrong message.
And that's what, as you alluded to, that's what he's doing here by telling them what we're not going to do. Let me ask you a question. When he calls them ISIL with an L, there's all kinds of speculation as to why he does that. But ISIL implies a greater goal by this group, Israel, Jordan, and some say that he doesn't call them ISIS because he doesn't want the people to be reminded of the Syria connection to them. Why do he's the only one I hear do it, but he constantly does it. Do you have any idea why he calls them ISIL?
Yeah, the L is the Levant, which is that area there. No, some people in the intelligence community do it. I don't know if there's any ulterior motive to it, but you're right. Everybody else is calling it ISIS, except the president and a few people in the intelligence community. I think they feel it makes them sound a little more sophisticated. I don't know. I have a hard time figuring out the motives of this president. I just can't imagine, let's say, Dwight Eisenhower saying, we're sending troops in here, but don't worry, we're going to pull them back. Or we're sending in bombers, but we're not going to send in troops. It's just, you just don't do it. And it's, again, it's the enemy looks at this and they say, okay, here's a guy that wants to get out. he's getting in, but he can't wait to get out.
Absolutely.
Well, that's not going to put fear in the heart of the enemy.
Yeah, and we're only going to fire after they fire if they threaten our people. Very
Right.
limited scope. One more for you. Of course,
Sure.
this ceasefire ended. Hamas couldn't wait. They've 50 rockets at least today in Israel. Israel says they will not continue to negotiate while they're under fire. What the heck is Hamas thinking, and why is ISIS a terrorist group to this administration, but Hamas is Hamas?
I tell you, I think this has been the biggest disgrace. The way this war has been described in the American media, the way the administration somehow equates Israel and Hamas, the way they almost from the start have been saying that Israel should pull back, Israel should only go so far. Israel is a country, and we can sustain an attack. As horrible as it is to lose American lives, we can sustain an attack. If Israel has 2 or 3 bad days, they could be gone as a country.
Yep.
I mean, they are in the worst neighborhood in the world. It's a small, tiny country, and the neighbors want to kill them. And for us to be telling them what's appropriate in a response, and to somehow be using harsh words describing Israel when the civilians end up being killed because of Hamas, and Israel gets blamed for that. I think it's a shockingly terrible, shameful way to treat an ally, the best ally we have in the region, one of perhaps the best in the world. And this, to me, if I were Netanyahu, I would just do what I have to do. Israel has to survive. They have to do what they have to do. And Hamas is a vicious terrorist organization. They've proven that time and again. And yet, the sympathy of the world, and certainly the sympathy of the mainstream media, just seems to be flowing for Hamas.
It is crazy.
I find it shameful.
Congressman, we're going to have Monsignor Jim Lasante on in a little while. He told me to say hello to you in advance.
Yes, tell Monsignor I said hello.
And I thank you for your time as always, sir.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Take care. Congressman Peter King, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, you know it, you love it, you've got to have it. It's the Malzberg panel. We're going to discuss all of this, so you're not going to want to miss it. Coming up right here next on the Steve Malzberg Show, only on Newsmax Television. You want to reach us through social media. Here's how you can do it.